The sky above Qingfeng Peak had turned the color of a bruise. Not the gentle violet of dusk, but something uglier, a deep, suffocated purple pressing down on the mountain like a palm flattening a flower into the dirt. The clouds had not moved in hours. Even the wind, which usually sang through the bamboo corridors of the Xianming sect, had gone completely still, as though heaven itself had paused to watch. Perhaps it had. The punishment courtyard sat at the base of the main hall, framed by stone pillars carved with dragons mid-ascension, beasts frozen forever in the act of reaching for something just beyond their claws. Disciples had gathered along the courtyard's edges the way people gather around a fire, drawn by heat, pretending it is warmth. They stood in their white and silver robes, pristine as new snow, whispering behind sleeves raised in false modesty.
Her spiritual roots were always more sentiment than substance. A wood affinity cultivator. Of course. Wood feeds fire. She could not help burning herself up over something she was never meant to touch.
They did not lower their voices particularly. There was no need. Aina could hear them. That, too, was part of the punishment. She knelt at the center of the courtyard on a formation carved in pale gold into the stone, the Shinma formation, the Heart Devil seal. It did not break bones. It did not draw blood, at least not in the beginning. It was far more elegant in its cruelty than that. It found what you loved. And it pressed. The golden lines beneath Aina's knees pulsed with a cold, rhythmic light, like a second heartbeat that had no intention of keeping her alive. The formation reached past her flesh and into her spiritual core, threading itself around the warmest parts of her, every memory she had held close, every quiet moment she had ever replayed in the dark of her room at night, and it squeezed. Her back was straight. She had decided that much for herself. Her inner disciple robes, pale blue like shallow water, were already damp at the collar. Her dark hair had come partially loose from its pin, strands falling across her face, and she did not have the use of her hands to push them away. Her wrists were bound behind her with a spiritual suppression cord that glowed faintly red, cutting off her chi like a hand around a throat. Her fingers had gone numb an hour ago. She was grateful for that, at least. Someone murmured from the crowd, loud enough. Laughter. Quiet, refined laughter, the kind that wears propriety like a mask. The third wave was the worst. The formation did not have a name for this one, but Aina did. It was longing. Undiluted and weaponized, her own emotion turned into a blade and fed back through her sternum. Every evening she had spent in the library copying sutras while he lectured, stealing glances at his profile. Every time he had corrected her sword form with 2 fingers against her wrist and she had had to remember how to breathe. Every cup of cold tea she had quietly replaced with a hot one outside his study door, never knocking, never claiming it. The formation took all of it. Every small, accumulated, harmless thing. And it told her, this is your sin. Her spine finally bent, just slightly, just forward, like a tree in wind that has lasted too long. A tear cut down her face, and she hated it with a ferocity that surprised her, because she was not sad. She was not sad. She was in pain, and there was a difference, and she needed someone to understand there was a difference. The 5 elders sat on the elevated platform at the courtyard's head, robes the color of deep water, faces arranged into the specific stillness that power wears when it wants to appear like wisdom. Elder Zhao stroked his beard. Elder Fong had not looked up from her tea. The message was clear: this matter was not interesting enough to be troubled by. It was merely necessary. And at the end of the platform, still as carved jade, as distant as the mountain peak behind him, stood Suja Luwe. Master Suja. Her master. He was watching.
Did you hear? She confessed to Master Suja directly. to his face. Shameless. Utterly shameless. What cultivation base does she even have to dream of such a thing? A man of his standing, his Tao already half transcended, and she soils his ears with her mortal sentiment. It is an insult dressed as affection. I heard she wept when she said it. Wept? As if tears make vulgarity holy. Her Daoxin was always cracked. This only proves it. Emotion is a root that rots from inside.
The pain came in waves. The first wave was always memory. She saw his face, Master Sujuliu's face, the way it had looked in the half-second before composure reclaimed him. She had been foolish enough to believe, for that half-second, that she had seen something fracture open. Something human. She had spoken from that belief. She had said the words clearly, without trembling, the way she had practiced in the bamboo grove for 3 shameful months. Suja. I like you. Not as a master. I know what I am saying. The formation punished her for the memory by making it vivid. Crystal clear. Inescapable. As though it knew that the memory itself was the sharpest blade in the room. A sound escaped her, not quite a cry, something smaller and more animal, and she pressed her lips together hard. Don't. The second wave was shame. It arrived as heat, flooding from her spiritual core outward through every meridian in her body, as though her own chi had turned against her and agreed with the crowd. Her face burned. Her chest burned. The cord at her wrists tightened, and she felt her cultivation suppressed further, pressed down to the level of a first-ring outer disciple, a child's reservoir, leaving her completely exposed to the formation with no inner armor remaining. A sob built in her throat like a stone she was trying to swallow whole. Of course he was watching. His presence was required. He was, in the architecture of this punishment, the wronged party, the honored one whose ears had been dirted, whose image had been burdened with an unsolicited feeling. He stood with both hands folded inside his sleeves and his eyes fixed somewhere in the middle distance, at a point just slightly above Aina's head, as though looking directly at her would be a concession he was unwilling to make. His face was, as always, like still water over deep cold. No anger. No discomfort. No recognition that a person was kneeling in agony 10 meters from where he stood. That, more than the formation, more than the laughter of her fellow disciples, was what finally cracked the last of Aina's composure open. Not cruelty. She could have survived cruelty. Just absence. The absolute, deliberate absence of him. She made no sound this time. The tear that fell was not from sadness and not from pain but from something she had no character for in any language she had learned in this sect's libraries. The formation pulsed gold. The sky stayed bruised. The disciples whispered on. And Aina knelt at the center of all of it, her back slowly, stubbornly, drawing itself straight again. The plum tree at the courtyard's eastern wall was blooming out of season. No one mentioned it. A single white petal detached and fell, spinning slowly, landing against the golden lines of the heart devil seal, and burning away to nothing the moment it touched the light.